Welcome back to another Premier League predictions video. As we do normally, we're going to take a look back on how well I did in Game Week 2, and then we're going to mosey on through to Game Week 3. And you know what? I got a prediction right. But we're going to start off with the Friday fixture and Nottingham Forest versus Sheffield United. Now, I did predict 2-0 to Forest. It was actually 2-1. Nottingham Forest marked their return to the City Ground with a win, but we made it a lot more difficult than it needed to be. We dominated early on, but the Blades managed to get more of a foothold in the match with a Harmer screamer into the top corner. As much as you like Turner, he wasn't saving that, and fair play, he can't really be mad at that goal. But it was Wood in the 89th minute which secured all those 3 points. I'm telling you right, Tyro and Wood are getting 30 goals between them this season. Mark my words. Tyro on 20, Wood on 10. We're cooking. And then we move on to the Saturday fixtures and Liverpool versus Bournemouth. Now predicted 3-1 to Liverpool. It was 3-1 to Liverpool. Let's fucking go. Yes, I nailed it. I knew it wouldn't be a massive blowout. And I was correct as the Cherries struck first actually. I was very shocked to see that. Liverpool did fight back though, with Diaz levelling things up before Salah gave the hosts the leads before Jota finished things off and well and truly beat Bournemouth. McAllister unjustly sought a red card, but that was later overturned. And it was the first of many red cards this week. Actually kind of mad when you think about it. Then move on to Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Brighton Hove Albion. Now I predicted 2-1 to Brighton. It's actually 4-1. Brighton continued to be dominant as they secured another 4-1 win. What? I mean, yes, you've played Luton and Wolves, but 4-1 in both those games is kind of crazy. Mitoma was absolutely world class in this match as he opened the scrum with a sensational run before teeing up Estupinian as well. My FPL was in dreamland with that. Just another dominant performance from the Seagulls. De Zerbi's got these guys cooking, and another very bizarre red at the death as well. There was no need for you to do this. You've just got yourself suspended. What's the point? And then we move on to Fulham versus Brentford. I predicted 1-0 to Brentford, and it was 3-0 to Brentford. And it was Mbeumo and Wissa again for the Bees as they saw off their West London rivals. It wasn't a complete domination as Fulham did have their fair share of chances, but just couldn't score any. And without Mitrovic, they're really going to struggle for goals. And there was another very strange red for Ream as well. Like, there was really no need for him to get a red. But, you know, that's 3 out of 3 so far. And then we move on to Tottenham versus Manchester United. I predicted 2-1 to Spurs, and it was actually 2-0. I was correct. You know, I saw the vision. Spurs were the dominant side as Manchester United looked absolutely woeful. Oh my god. Spurs looked to be cooking under Ange, and this match was a very good example of that. Even without Kane, Spurs showed they can score. You know, they've changed up their style a bit, and it's paid dividends so far. I think Tottenham looked brilliant in this match against United, so fair fucks, honestly. Gives me hope for Saturday. And then we move on to Manchester City versus Newcastle United. Now I predicted 3-2 to City, and it's actually just 1-0. The Old Derby ended as expected with a Manchester City win, but it was a very hard fought affair for the citizens. It was Alvarez who was the difference though, and he scored on City's first attempt on goal. But man, Foden played brilliantly in that match. He even teed up Alvarez for the goal. And Kovacic looks brilliant as well. Like, Kovacic looks like he's been playing that City style for a while because he just fit right in. And Foden is shining without Kevin De Bruyne. So, you know, City are cooking, man. They're cooking. But when they're not cooking, to be honest. And then we move on to the Sunday fixtures and Aston Villa versus Everton. And I predicted 2-0 to the Villains, but it was actually 4-0. Villa put their drubbing behind them as they easily dismantled Everton. The Toffees' defence could not catch a break as the Villains ran rampant on Merseyside. It all just seemed too easy for Villa. They looked like they could have honestly done more than 4, to be honest. But Pickford saved Everton's blushes somewhat, but even he wasn't great to be fair, but probably Everton's best player on the pitch, I'd say. And then move on to West Ham United versus Chelsea. Now I predicted 2-1 to Chelsea. It's actually 3-1 to West Ham. You know what? I owe an apology, West Ham. I was not familiar with your game. The Hammers opened the scoring with James Ward-Prowse assisting in his very first appearance for the club, but Chelsea showed fight as they leveled things up through Chukwuemeka. Enzo had the chance to give the Blues a lead, had his penalty saved, you know, well worth the money. But West Ham, they went down to 10 men, but they stood strong and claimed all 3 points. And there was another red this week, this time again. Gotta hold your hands up there and say, what a debut for Casado. And then the Monday fixture of Crystal Palace versus Arsenal. I predicted 2-1 to Arsenal, and it's actually just 1-0. Arsenal secured all 3 points against Palace, but they were not as dominant as expected, as it was only an Odegaard penalty that separated the two sides. But my FPL loved that penalty. Palace had their chances, but just could not find the back of the net. A very strange red for Tomiyasu as well. I don't think he deserved that. And yeah, that wraps up my Game Week 2 predictions. You know, I did fairly well with one correct prediction, which is better than I've done so far this season. So hopefully, you know, we can take that into Game Week 3 and maybe get 2 correct. You know, I'm getting the results right, I'm just not getting the scores. That's what I really need to focus on, you know, channel my ball knowledge on. But I don't know, we'll get there. We'll get there. Anyway, we're going to move on to the Game Week 3 fixtures and Friday night's fixture of Chelsea versus Luton Town. This is one match that Chelsea will be feeling like they should win. And realistically, they should. Due to ongoing ground construction work, Luton are unable to play home games at the moment and as such will be less match fit than their opponents. Poch has a big job to do at Chelsea, but getting a win under their belt will be good for the squad, good for confidence, and hopefully build them some momentum to climb up the table. I don't want to discount Luton too much, however, their lack of playing time will definitely hinder them. You know, time on the training ground can only do so much. It's very different from a competitive setting, and as I'm not sure if they've played a behind closed game between those times, they might be fairly rusty. I'm going to say 2-0 to Chelsea. I can see it being a fairly comfortable win for Chelsea. Like, they were second best against West Ham, but I can see that partly being down to the many signings Chelsea made and, you know, getting all those players to gel together. We saw that with Forest last season, and hopefully after the money they've spent, they should be better than Luton. Luton were absolutely dominated by Brighton, and while I see most sides suffering the same fate this season, they've not really had a chance to show what else they can do. I don't think the Hatters will be able to keep out Chelsea, honestly, but Ross Barkley, he's got a chance to do the funniest thing on his debut, and I'm here for it, can't lie. He looks as orange as the club. And then move on to the Saturday fixtures and Bournemouth versus Tottenham Hotspur. The Cherries will host Spurs at Dean Court as both teams begin their hopefully successful seasons under new managers. Ange, I would say, has gone off to the better start between the two new coaches. You know, both looking to implement new, fairly attacking styles on the sides. And I think so far, Ange has done better and has gained better results than Iraola. Tottenham look like a very different side to last season. They actually look quite refreshing as opposed to Conte ball. And that is besides Kane being absent as well. Ange has got Spurs ticking so far. You know, I think it's fair to say that they are going to start cooking this season. Whereas Bournemouth, you know, they also look quite different, but just haven't had the opportunity to fully display this new style in full flow. But it does look promising for the Cherries as well. However, I am going to say 2-1 to Tottenham. Spurs looked very good in their victory over United last week, and that momentum will only be with them coming to this clash. I do think Dean Court will help Bournemouth, and we know that they can score against sides which would normally be considered to be better than them, so I can see that happening here. But I just think Spurs have what it takes to just edge out Bournemouth, you know. Bournemouth, they're not really a side to be trifled with, I'd say, this season. You know, they've recruited well in the summer, they're definitely building a long-term project, and they're going to be a tough club to break down, I think. But I think Spurs, you know, they've got what it takes to beat Bournemouth. Then move on to Brentford versus Crystal Palace. And now it's a London derby as Palace take the short trip over to the Brentford Community Stadium. Brentford have gone off to a good start this season and currently find themselves in a top 4 spot. Granted, is after 2 games, but, you know, still impressive. Brentford have also shown that they don't have a few scoring goals without Tony, as Mbeumo and Wissa have stepped up to the plate, scoring all 5 of Brentford's goals so far this season, and probably going to score a couple more in this match as well. Palace, on the other hand, have only scored a single goal this season against Sheffield United and have had many chances go begging. So, yeah, it's not looking great for Palace, and as such, I'm going to say 2-0 to Brentford. I think we'll see another win from Brentford here. You know, they look very threatening in attack, and with Mbeumo and Wissa being in some great form, they look very hard to stop. Palace do show attacking threat, but they just seem to lack that end product, and at the moment that's going to continue to cost them points. We just need Roy to unlock those scoring boots like he did last season. And then move on to Arsenal versus Fulham. It's another London derby as the Gunners host Fulham at the Emirates. However, this is a Fulham side without Mitrovic, as he has finally departed to Saudi Arabia. This is a huge loss for the Cottagers, as they've not looked like scoring when he's not on the pitch, and when he's on the pitch you can definitely see his contribution to the team and getting them in those goal scoring positions, you know, feeding them, scoring them. He's been a huge piece for Fulham, and now that he's gone, I think they're going to struggle. Unfortunately for them, they're hosted by a strong Arsenal side who have gone off to a really good start this season. While not looking as lethal as last season, they're still a very strong side. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. They'll be looking to make the Emirates a fortress once again this season as they attempt to push for the title once more. I'm going to say 2-1 to Arsenal. I think it'll be another fairly comfortable one for Arsenal. You know, Fulham have not shown a lot of attacking prowess and are in desperate need of a prolific goal scorer to replace the Serbian. Despite that though, I do think they'll score a goal at least. Arsenal look like a much better side in front of goal though, and do have a wealth of players who can score, and they don't rely on a single player to do that. They're definitely going to cause Fulham a lot of problems. And then move on to Manchester United versus Nottingham Forest. Now call me crazy, but I think Forest can get something here. Manchester United have not looked great in either of their games this season, deservedly losing to Tottenham and getting very lucky against Wolves. Nottingham Forest have looked much better than they did last season, with Tao Awoniyi striking twice this season, carrying on a run of 8 in 6, stretching back to last season. Bro is going to cook this season if he stays fit. Whew. I said 20 goals, and I mean it. He's very dangerous at the moment. Manchester United beat Forest 4 times last season. Twice in the league and twice in the cup, and it was all in a very short period of time as well. It was pain. But this United side looks much different to that one, and they look a lot less potent in attack and less secure at the back as well. We've seen Forest hitting on the counter, they can be very effective from that. We saw them do it against Arsenal, and Manchester United look worse than Arsenal, so we could cook here. But I'm going to say 1-1. I do think Forest can grab a point at Old Trafford. As mentioned, United have not looked good so far this season, so it could be a very opportune time to face them. However, Mason Mount is reportedly injured, which is an L for us, but we move. Forest weren't great away from home last season, I don't think anyone would disagree with that, and it remains to be seen if they have improved at all on that, but this game will be a good showcase of whether or not they have. But I think the Arsenal game is a good indicator that we might have gotten a little bit better. United look rudderless at the moment, and I wouldn't be surprised if they lost, to be honest. But I don't think Forest have that in their locker just yet. When it gets Henderson though, and then we move on to Everton versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. The battle of the stinkers. Some might call it a relegation 6-pointer, 3 games into the season, but it's shaping up to be something like that. Neither team has looked good in either of their showings so far this season, but I would say Wolves had the better individual performances, you know, with them actually scoring a goal and getting harshly punished at Manchester United, I guess, with that penalty that wasn't given. Everton have very little threat going forward, and now DCL is out for another 6 months, or DCL's out however long he is, water is wet, which only diminishes their already lackluster attack. And let's not mention Malpe. The less said about him the better. Wolves performed alright against Manchester United, but were absolutely dominated by Brighton. However, Hwang Hee-chan, he managed to bag a goal, so fair play. I'm going to say 1-0 to Wolves. Wolves have generally played better than Everton, and I think that will continue here. As mentioned, they have a lot more attacking threat than Everton, and despite being at Goodison, I cannot see Everton scoring against a weak Wolves side. I can't see what Everton are going to score a goal from either, so all I can see from them is trying to keep goals conceded to a minimum. Brexit football is not cooking. It's not looking good for the Toffees. And then we move on to Brighton and Hove Albion versus West Ham United. Top of the league Brighton take on West Ham at the Amex. Brighton have had a brilliant start to the season, being one of the only 3 teams to have won both their matches so far. And what wins they've been. West Ham, on the other hand, only won 1 of their matches, but it was a very solid win against Chelsea, so can't really be complaining about that. Brighton, though, are a very different beast, especially this Brighton side, and look very threatening under De Zerbi. West Ham did grab that emphatic win over Chelsea, but let's be honest, it wasn't a brilliant looking Chelsea side. They're still integrating players and getting used to the Pochettino style of play, but I'm not going to let that discount from West Ham's performance, as they grabbed a win despite going down to 10 men. I'm going to say 3-1 to Brighton. I see it being another 3 points for Brighton. As I said, they're currently flying, playing some brilliant football under De Zerbi, and are definitely a force to be reckoned with this season. I can't see West Ham causing the Seagulls too many troubles, as they don't really have much in their lockers which could trouble Brighton, in my opinion at least. I do see them scoring though, as Brighton have conceded in each game so far, but come on man, Brighton are cooking this season. Even with Europe, I think they're going to do well, and West Ham are going to be another victim of this very good looking side. Then we move on to the Sunday fixtures, and we start off with Sheffield United versus Manchester City. And things aren't looking good for Sheffield United as they host champions Manchester City. The Blades have not gotten off to the best of starts as they failed to win their previous matches, whereas Man City have won their previous 2 and look to be in some brilliant form. That's not to mention Erling Haaland. Sheffield United did go into the game against Nottingham Forest, but still found it hard to deal with our attacking threat, and I think it's safe to say that City's attacking threat is some of the best in the league, so it's going to be very interesting to see how Sheffield United try to deal with that. Haaland could be on course for a hat-trick, especially with Foden pinging in balls. My god. I'm going to say 4-0 to City. I can't really see Manchester City having any issue with Sheffield United. The Blades have not had the opportunity to show what they can do against these top Premier League sides, and at the moment, judging from their previous matches, they're not going to be able to do much. Even without De Bruyne, City look unstoppable. Foden's gone into the midfield and looked absolutely sublime. I'm probably going to give Pep a headache when De Bruyne is fit, but Foden needs to grasp his opportunity with both hands and just thrive, because it's what he deserves. And I don't think Sheffield United have it in their lockers to stop this Manchester City side. It's looking very, very unlikely for Sheffield United. They may keep the score low, but 4-0, probably conservative to be honest. And then move on to Burnley versus Aston Villa. The first Cloud and Blue derby of the season as Aston Villa travelled to Turf Moor. Burnley currently find themselves in the drop zone after only playing a single match. They were set to play Luton, but obviously that got cancelled. They do lack some match fitness, but have apparently played Manchester United behind closed doors and allegedly won as well. So there is some sharpness there. However, that remains to be seen in a competitive setting though. As I've mentioned, training, friendlies, they're a lot different to the actual competitive matches. Villa, on the other hand, are coming off the back of a successful Europa Conference League qualifier, as well as that demolition of Everton. Burnley looked alright against Man City and even attacked the Citizens multiple points throughout the match, so they'll definitely be able to give Villa a game, that's for sure. But I am going 2-1 Villa. Whilst I do see Burnley scoring, this is a Villa side that are just too strong for them at the moment. Villa put that demolition at the hands of Newcastle behind them as they thumped Everton and Hibs respectively, showing their goal-scoring prowess in full effect. We've only seen Burnley play against the top team, but they acquitted themselves well, and I'm sure they'll give the Villains a good game in Lancashire. But I just think Unai Emery's side is just too good for Burnley at the moment. But that's not to say Burnley are a bad side. Villa are definitely in the ascendancy. And finally, Newcastle United versus Liverpool. We round off our week as Liverpool travel to St James's Park to face Newcastle United. St James's Park is never an easy place to go, as no matter what team you are, it's going to be very, very tough. Newcastle have shown further improvement from last season despite only winning one of their 2 matches, but they kept City very quiet for what it's worth. Liverpool, on the other hand, are in an odd place at the moment as they do look better than last season, but with an arguably weaker squad. Obviously they lost a lot of midfielders last season and the players they brought in are good, but they've not strengthened the midfield in the way it needs to be strengthened. And it also doesn't help that they lost out on both Caicedo and Lavia to Chelsea. Trent may also be out injured, I'm not sure what's going on with that, so that remains to be seen, but he will be a big loss for Liverpool. All in all, it's not looking great for Liverpool at the moment, and that's also multiplied by the fact that Newcastle have made some good additions in the summer and showed that strength in their first clash with Villa, and we're very unfortunate not scoring at City to be honest. I'm saying 2-0 to Newcastle. I don't think it'll be a massive win for the Magpies, as Liverpool have a fairly solid defence, but I do see the Magpies getting the job done. Like I said, they have a very prolific attack, which will cause Liverpool a lot of problems, and while Liverpool do also have a very proficient, prolific wealth of attacking talent, I can see Newcastle's defence keeping them at bay for the most part. Liverpool desperately need to strengthen their defence, and their midfield to be honest, because Tonali and Bruno are going to have a field day in the centre of the pitch, and yeah, they're going to run St James's Park very, very effectively. But yeah, those would be my Game Week 3 Premier League predictions. I think I've got some solid predictions in there. Hopefully I can get at least 2 correct. That'd be a dub for me. And yeah, I'd like to hear what you guys have predicted. Maybe you think your team's going to win or I've got them to lose. Comment down below. I enjoy reading what you have to say. I shall see you guys in the next video. Peace.